And we're live. Are y'all filming?
No, that was all
Oh,
yesterday.
okay.
I'm by myself today, thankfully.
Can I ask where?
East Texas.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Well, hey man, like I'm gonna ask. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a small lake. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't blame you, dude. I don't. Hey, I'm gonna ask.
Oh yeah,
Will you tell me off air?
yeah. I don't even know
Okay,
if you've been here before.
probably
Uh,
not.
I don't know.
I doubt it. Man, I'm not one of those guys that. Um, I'm one of those guys. Were you like this? I don't know if you were like this, but everything. I don't go to lakes hardly ever, like for fun. And so it was I only went to lakes where tournaments were at. So if there wasn't a tournament, I never went there. So other than like if they're not I got like three lakes by my house, four that are 30, 20 minutes away,
Yeah,
and they're all good. Like they're all you can go catch 30 pounds on all of them. And so it's hard for me to go drive like 3 hours to go do the same thing somewhere else.
yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I was. You know, when I was younger, obviously we fished everywhere, but honestly, I never left Fork or Lake of the Pines for years, unless I was fishing champs or Triple T, something like that. That I was going somewhere.
Well, you are probably always guiding or working on like the next tournament, like practicing.
Yeah, that's all it was. And honestly, when you're guiding, if you're trying to really make money, you didn't even hardly practice. Maybe one day.
So,
You know.
so I, this is gonna be great, man. So, so I did a video the other day about what did I talk about? But I got into the whole and I want to see if you're like me, how you judged everything. So I went based off of it was about this whole young. I don't want to say younger generation, but this weird thought process where people have this delusion about the elites. That's what it was. It was like fishing professional. And I was trying to explain to them, like, because some guy made a comment. Now I remember everything's coming back to me. Some guy made a comment that, like, hey, man, you're not like fishing for your dreams or something. Like, you gave up on your dream of fishing. And I was like, no, I didn't. What are you talking about? I was 12 years old and I thought of, I thought about what I wanted to do. I just wanted to keep fishing. But when I was younger, I'll never forget this, man. I always used to sit there and go, okay, Nacogdoches was 45 minutes to an hour from the lake, depending on where I went. I knew how much gas that cost me to get there. Driving around Rayburn isn't exactly fun, so I'd pick an area and learn it. And I was down to the whole. If I bought water and something at the gas station, that's like $17 and everything. And I mean, dude, it ended up being $100. Now, $100 to a lot of people is whatever. $100 to a 22-year-old college student that was like paying for all the bills and like working. That was like a whole day's work for me
Yeah.
just to go practice one day. And so I always looked at tournaments that way of going, okay, a tournament costs $200 or $300 to get into, and then like you could win 3,000, but split between two people is 1,500 minus the entry fee. Now we're down to 1,200 minus gas for the day. Now we're down to 1,100. And if I spent 3 days practicing, that's $300 or $400 into my 1,100. If I win, now I won $800
Yeah.
if I won the event. And I was going, that's how I viewed practice of going, okay, how many practice days do I really need to do how do I figure that out?
Yeah. How many can you do? Is the biggest deal. Uh, yeah, I was the same way. You fished a lot more than me back then. I pretty much just started. Besides, I'm not counting like the local, like Tuesday nighters and stuff, that I fished. Because I lived in Louisiana when I was in college, so I was fishing, Caney and Darbone and Washita River, stuff like that is where I started my tournaments over there. But when I came back here, I really didn't fish anything. I just guided. And then I started fishing champs, and got my ass handed to me the first year or two. I wasn't practicing. I guess I was, but I didn't. I still didn't know how to practice for a champs is a big tournament to me. Champs and
Yeah.
Triple T are big tournaments. They're hard to win.
But you couldn't practice for the champ.
Well, well, you know, like the weekend before, you know.
Yeah, but I mean, to me, that's really not practicing. I mean, that's
well, that's all I could do, you know.
No,
anyway,
I agree.
You know?
I agree.
You know, I was like when I started fishing champs, I sucked the first year for sure, but I didn't know how to practice for big tournaments on lakes that I wasn't used to. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like I grew up fishing just here in East Texas, you know, Lake of the Pines, out of a freaking John boat, you know, with a trolling motor and a 9.9, pretty much. But it took a year of learning how to actually. People don't really know how to practice.
Mm-mm.
You know what I mean? Before live scope. I mean, I know live scope's changed a lot of stuff, but like you make your money in practice, and then a lot of it's just. And I know I'm going way off subject, but you know, a lot of it's just eliminating water where there is either no fish or not the right size fish. You know, you gotta, you know, get the highest percentages on your 5 biggest fish, obviously. So, you know, it took me a year to even learn how to practice. You know, I was just thinking I was a badass. I could show up because I could go to Fork and catch 35, 40 pounds every day, which was easy back then. You know, everybody was doing it. So it took me a year to learn how to practice. You know, once it starts clicking, then you start learning a lot more, you know, and now, and I'm totally going off subject, but like now, you know, when I practice, I hardly even fish, you know, per lake, per time of year, you know, because when I say that, I shouldn't say it like that. When I'm learning a lake, you know, like I just went to Ray Roberts and pre-practice for the Classic before the first when it goes off limits, and I've drove around for a day, you know, 2.5 days, and I never made a cast. You know what I mean? But I could show up right now, the Classic starting tomorrow, and I would have 5 zones that I'm 100% confident I could go catch a bag out of, or, you know, or be close to them. You know, it'd take a little bit of time.
And what's different about the way me and Russell, well, I wouldn't say different, but like how me and Russell view it too, is, you know, we fish Ray Roberts. I don't know, like I'm trying to think, at most 2 times a year. So that's all we do. I pre-practiced Ray Roberts one time in my life before the first tournament I ever fished there. And then after that, I don't go pre-practice hardly anything except actually, if you want to call it Rayburn, right? But that's just me kind of going out there. But we don't ever go to a lake before that, right? We get a day before a bass champs, I'll do a day. So like last year I fished the bass champs there and came in 5th by myself, you know, and then me and Russell, the last tournaments we've had on Ray Roberts, me and Russell came in 2nd in the TXTT. I think we came in 4th when y'all won, I believe. And then I think we went back there again and we made another. I don't know. We made like the last 4 or 5 events, we made the top 5 in every event. And we only practiced that 1 day or 2 days before the event. But I'll say about Ray Roberts, and I know you've got whatever going on there. This isn't, I'm saying anything, whatever. But how we viewed it all was every lake is different in the sense of there's some lakes you can just like go up and down a lake and catch fish.
Yeah.
I view like Table Rocks like that, right? Lake of the Ozarks is like that. You can start on one end to the other and catch fish every 100 yards. Ray Roberts is not like that. And what we had to figure out was like where we thought they lived. And then that's why we're like, we only need a day. 2 is great, but we only need a day because we've learned forever that like, this is where we're going to fish. We just better figure out where they're at in that area. Now, I know there's more places to catch them, I assume, but I think they're kind of more spots. And we don't really fish spots. We fish patterns. So, you know.
Yeah, it's actually a really good tournament lake. And that's why people still go up there. Not as many fish in there. There's big ones, but it's actually a really good tournament lake.
We love it. Yeah, we love going there.
Yeah, it'll be a good classic lake.
I think so too. This is what I started laughing about. So, Spaz boy called me up while me and you were talking yesterday, right? Kyle.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about. He said he had taken like a month off of fishing. You know, that's like whatever. And I'm like, man, that'd be nice. I don't know what that's like. Not that I don't even like taking a month off, but with YouTube, I sure can't ever. I can't like take 3 days off. But when he was like, I don't think these guys know. And he said, I don't know. And I kind of agreed with him now because maybe I didn't realize this. He said that at least two of those guys out there in the elites like went and practiced for like 34 days in a row.
I have no idea. I know some of those younger guys like Rob G. I mean, they were there for multiple days. I don't know about that, which I wouldn't doubt. That's not going to help you any. I mean, I can,
Well,
I can break an entire lake down in about 3 days. I mean, anything after that, it's just you're just spinning your wheels. I don't care who you are.
For me, well, so I'll say this. This is what, as I get older, I would say 5 years ago, before LiveScope, I would say you're 1,000,000% right. And that's how, and really being poor, like I was for so long, I'm still poor, but like judging how much time, like I had to manage that practice, right? So sometimes we could go practice for 5 days in a row, but like I said, I wasn't that guy. There's a lot of guys that will go practice 2 weeks for a tournament they can win $1,000 in because they care more about winning the tournament than money. And I was never like that. So I got really good at, like you said, like I got really good at how fast can I learn a lake in a short amount of time. And it really was based on money, right? So I was like, if I can spend, I'd love to be out there 5 days in a row. But I just don't want to spend that money, if I can't make it back. And most of our tournaments around Texas, for a while there, it really pissed me off. It was like you couldn't practice. There was no, like every week it was like off limits. And then the next week, off limits. And I'm like, golly, all I'm doing is fishing like 1 day a week because of these stupid off limits. I would say you're right. I'm just willing to say I've never spent 34 days on the water, like on the same body of water, practicing for an event. I'm not saying
not for an event that's 2 months away. Is
right, but I will say this: LiveScope's so unique that I'm not 100% sure that it. I'm not quick to sit there and say that maybe it would hurt me. Because fishing wise, but here's why. Here's why. I didn't like it because I know that fishing is going to change for me, right? So like that's why it doesn't do any good for me. What if though? And I'm just saying, what if you just kept going around that lake with LiveScope and go, man, every time I pull in here, I don't see anything, and then every time I pull in here, I don't see much, and then every time I pull in this area, I see a lot more.
Well, that'll definitely help Monterey Roberts because there's only about 5 zones that I
know
that I feel like 5 or 6 zones on the whole entire lake where you can catch a 3-day bag to win a tournament. You know what
right?
I mean? So, but I mean, that's almost obvious to the eye if you drive around almost. And I'm not saying there's not more. I've won tournaments on both ends of the lake, the east side and the west side. So there's
east. Hold on.
I'm not. Yeah, east and west. We're not even gonna get too much. I don't want anybody to know too much about.
No. I'm trying to think about like one of those sides I've never made a cast on.
I won my first champs on that side.
Really? Well, you don't even know. Well, you probably have an idea.
Yeah, dude. There's one side that nobody fishes, and the first champs I ever won was on that side of the lake where nobody fishes. Caught every fish over there. So I mean, it's and I got second in the champs on that side. So both sides can play, but there's just certain zones.
Yeah, it took me a while. Like, I'm just telling you, we probably need to get off it. But I will say this: you say you can drive around and see it. I can't, because I'm trying to go back to where if I didn't know anything, I mean, I know now, right? Like I know now, and I know because of experience. But beforehand, like it kind of makes sense, but it helps a lot more when you're like, well, I've caught 25 pounds in that right there, and I've caught 25 pounds there.
I'm with you on that because, like I said, we fished champs for a year, and I don't even know if we could have checked. Probably not. And we went there and thought we were going to throttle them, and got throttled, and saw some big bags caught. And it took me a year of fishing Ray Roberts, or a couple tournaments to go, oh, okay. It's almost like a Ross Barnett in my mind. I know that doesn't make sense to you probably,
Yes, big
but
time.
like you can win over there, you can win over there, and the rest of it's just
And
carbs.
I'll say this too. This is one of the few lakes when I go to it, I'm like, I get a bite. Like you're never gonna like crush on them, right? You never catch like a bunch of fish.
You can. It's just late in the year when nobody
Yeah,
ever
yeah.
goes there.
Right,
Like
right. But like,
in
so
April and May, you catch a bunch.
if you get like, I have realized now too that like when I get 2 bites somewhere, and I'm going, well, how'd you do today? I'm like, well, I had 9 bites, and I had 1 here, 1 there, 2 there, 1 there, 2. So when you catch 2 there, I don't know. It's the agree with me on this. It's the only lake that I swear
I don't even
gets.
want to talk about it anymore.
I know. I swear it gets better during the tournament than your practice day.
Yeah. I've had some amazing practice,
Yeah.
like a pre-practice deal for a champs. Chad, that guy from I used to fish with a guy named Chad Bailey. I talk to him every day. He's my best friend. He would drive from Oklahoma. I'd practice, and he would practice too. Like Ray Roberts, he could get there. But like we caught 3 over 10 one practice day.
Well, yeah, but see, I don't count that.
I'm just saying, and like we went back and didn't catch anything there, like literally. But I'm with you, and I don't even want to keep talking about it. So
Yeah.
let's go back. We almost circle back to the original thought process of you talking about $100 days for practice, and I was the same way. I was even like that guy. I'd be like, man, it's going to cost me $40 in gas today. That's coming out of my whatever I was charging back then, $350, and then somebody breaks off a 10XD or A-Rig something. That's another, because I didn't have any sponsors obviously then. So
I got a message literally 30 minutes ago, and it was on Facebook, and it was like, hey, and like how you can sometimes read the message before you click on it, and it just said, hey, do you still? And I thought I was gonna say guide or something, because people ask me if I guide, and I'm like, I might guide like twice a year, maybe, if I even whatever. And it goes, hey, can I pay you? And I was like, oh, it's a guide trip. Like, I'm gonna have to tell them no. If I can follow you around, and as soon as I said follow you around, I'm like, no. He's like, to learn the lake for like driving safety issues and stuff like that. And I was like, and I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, no, I would love to do it. I would do it, but I'm like, I gotta drive 45 minutes to the lake to drive around Rayburn, to like just drive around. And I would spend like 8 hours just driving my boat around, like showing it. And I'm like, I don't know what you think's worth it. That it wouldn't be hard, but I'm like, man, what do you even charge? Because I'm like, $300 a day wouldn't even be like, I would spend $100 in gas. I was like, man, maybe I'll do a video, but that's just not, it's not worth it to him. I mean, it kind of would be, maybe. I don't know. It'd be hard for me to charge someone that much money, but that's literally what we'd be doing, is driving around all day long.
Yeah.
I don't feel like doing that either. That's kind of like a waste of a day to me.
Yeah, just charge them $500.
I still don't want to go do it though. Like, I don't really want to, like, I feel like it was just I'd put 2 hours, 3 hours on my boat. I don't know, man. I was like, I don't know about all that.
Just take his boat.
Hey, I'm trying to get out of it. Ooh, $250 an hour. That's right. Smart. Be like, hey, my boat doesn't go over 40.
Exactly.
This guy goes $100. Look, it's already going up to 250, man. Are you fishing anything else this year? Can you talk about that?
I'm gonna try to fish the Toyotas. I still haven't texted Mark after you sent me his number yesterday. I filmed all day with Christmas, so I haven't even texted him to see if I can still get in. But I'm gonna try to fish the 3 Toyotas. I can fish all 3 of them. The second one, I think I won't get to practice for like a day or 2, coming from I don't know where we're coming from, but that'll be the only one that's close. Obviously, this one I can fish fine, or maybe it's the third. I don't know. One of them I'm going to show up late, but I'm gonna try to fish those 3 just to fish something different other than bass.
Did you have? Normally, I don't know if this is a touchy subject. Like, I don't know why I'm like, but did you think about the NPFL?
Oh yeah, no, I wanted to fish. I wanted to fish last year. You know, me and Hackney both were, and I think Hackney signed up this year.
Yeah, he did. Well,
But
like, there's a lot of people signed up, and I don't think people realize who's all signed up.
I think the roster comes out tomorrow.
Yeah,
Luke
and I don't want to. I don't want. Obviously, I'll never. I don't know why it matters, but I guess a
yeah,
lot of those guys didn't even aren't telling anyone. I mean, Swindle was vocal about it, but I mean,
yeah. A lot of our guys did. I tried, man. I didn't like the schedule first. I mean, I'll be honest with Brad or Luke or you. It doesn't matter. I did not like the schedule at all, logistically and just in general. And I got a 2-year-old right now, and I'm enjoying Lane. So the only reason I'm fishing those 3 Toyotas is because 2 of them are at Rayburn and 1 of them's in Eufaula. You know, all within 4 hours. You know, 2 of them within 2.5 hours of my house, and 1 of them within 4 hours of my house. So I don't want to be gone that long right now. But I do like the NPFL, like what they're doing over there. I love having a series with no forward-facing sonar. I've been vocal about that, and I think I hope it does well. Hopefully they get some more sponsor dollars over there because of that, and because of some of the names coming, and they can make the payout better because it's not good besides first place.
would you? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They might not like me because I've been vocal about different stuff. I don't know. I mean, I hadn't really ever. I thought about at one point in time, like I always look at those schedules. I'll look at the invitationals. I look at all that stuff and kind of see if something stands out. And it's not a bashing of the schedule. Like, I just look at in past, I was like, man, we live around Texas, and I think it was last year I had some guys from Texas fish it, and they're 3 hours closer to all those lakes. And they were like, the closest lake for them was like 9 hours. And I was going, yeah, man, that's, I don't know if I want to go do that, Like, I don't know if I want to go travel that much if they can't have, it wasn't, I don't know.
I mean, obviously I was planning on fishing some Brandon Belt stuff, and when that went away, I looked at my options, and I like the open schedules. It's just, it's more travel, obviously. So, and the Toyota Championship's where it's at. It's like a miniature classic if I can qualify for it in the fall. So I got a classic in the spring for $300,000, and then a championship in the fall for $200,000. So it's money. You know what I mean? You got to go where you can make some money in the long run. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you win open, yeah, cool. But if you don't,
it's not. Yeah,
Grand. I mean, you can make a little money, but you're not making a life-changing chunk of money.
Obviously Grand's going to be awesome. Like, I love going to Grand, and even if I don't catch them, like I've done good there in the fall when we've had once or twice. Obviously I've done really good there in the springtime stuff. Like, done really good at led some of the events. I think I was second after day 1 in the tour when we went there. So, I mean, I've done pretty good that time of the year. So Grand looks awesome. The open schedule, I thought I don't know about the other division, but our division looks awesome. And not just because of Rayburn. Like, I looked it up and down. I'm like, yeah, that looks good. Everyone asked if I was getting into Rayburn. I thought about it for a second, but I think there's 3 events I would miss on Rayburn before the Open. And then the next Open would be on top of the next Toyota Series on Rayburn. So I'd be giving up 2 Toyotas on the lake, and they're like, well, yeah, you could win it. I'm like, you know how hard it is? Like, go look how many guys have won. And it's just so hard to win an Open or any of those events. Like, almost of all those Toyota Series, I don't know how many guys have won 2 Toyota Series on Rayburn.
Right.
In the last 20 years. I think Chris McCall's done it. Ooh, I don't. It's Russell won. Like I'm telling you, there's not many guys who've won more. And I'm not saying I've won one, but that's how hard it is to win multiple like big events on that lake. Like almost no one's ever done it.
Right.
Over like a 10-year period. So it's a hard lake to go win on. But
yeah, you should fish the Open.
no, I'm good. I'd rather fish. Like I said, the Toyotas are going to be fine. I'd rather do that.
Yeah, that opens up. I mean, you're not fishing it. Wyatt's not fishing it. Shane's not fishing it.
What, the Opens?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sure that Bond and all y'all's little Raven groups probably fishing the Toyota. So that Open's kind of opening up for somebody to get in there. I know Jack's fishing it. I mean, I know Jack doesn't live down there anymore, but he knows it good. So
I would say
I don't know who's fishing it. The younger guys besides Jack, but with the guys that have been catching them besides Shane and Wyatt. But I know both of them aren't fishing it.
I know guys, and I would say like the guys that I would worry about right now. I don't know if Marshall Hughes is fishing it. I would bet you he fishes the Toyota. I only know one buddy of mine that's fishing it. I would be worried about Marshall. Alec Morris has been down there for like a month. I think him and Jaden are both fishing. So
I thought all those guys were MLF guys.
Well, I think they're fishing. No, we'll see. Alec and Jaden didn't. I know they qualified for the VPT, but they didn't. They're the two guys that aren't doing it.
Oh, the Parrish kid.
Yeah. So they've been down there they've been getting in all the little small tournaments. So they're going to fish the Opens. But like a guy like Cole Moore, I bet you he fishes the Toyota, but I'd be worried about him if there's a lot of guys that I would say most of the guys that I'd worry about are fishing the Toyotas and not the Open.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it's kind of opening that Open up for you to go jackpot it.
I'm already that ship sailed, I guess.
You can just transfer your entries over to my name.
Man, you're good. I'm good. Plus, like I said, I'd missed 3 events already. I'd missed 2 other events. So I've got one this weekend, one the next weekend. I mean, and they're for a lot of money. So I'd miss out on all that too.
Yeah.
The NPFL stuff is so every month something pops into my head and I think about like this live scope thing or like even with Strike King, and I don't know if y'all have meetings like that at 6 Cents and stuff, but like I'm always looking at like where it's going because even like the team stuff. Like at one point in time last year, I heard guys talking about like the team stuff might be where it's at in the future, right? And then Brandon Belt goes away, and so like right when you think it might, like that might be the next step, that something like that goes away. I have a really interesting take on this forward-facing. Like, I don't ever think I think it's 100% here to stay, and it's going to be even. And I explain why too, but I don't think it's going away at all. And I think it's even going to be like it's going to be harder and harder for it to go away. And I have this is the way my mind thinks, and I'm like not way out there, but this is where it's going. So I kind of started figuring out why all the older guys don't like it. And I'm with them on this. Like I can think the same way too and still be okay with it, right? Because if you have an opinion, everyone wants to go ahead and sit there and go, oh, if you have an opinion on it, now you hate it. Or if you talk something about it, you love it, right? Look at him. He hates it. That's how much Lee hates it. That he just goes away. Oh, he's back.
Yeah, somebody was calling.
All of a sudden. Like when you were younger, all the old guys used to sit there and say, "Man, Look, Leah's what is going on? That's what happens when you get old. You don't even know how to use technology anymore. This is part of the thing.
I almost showed y'all what lake I was at.
Yeah. All the old guys always used to say, "Oh, I used to have to walk uphill in the snow both ways to school," right?
Mm-hmm.
The problem, because I thought there were levels to this, is like there's always going to be a professional level, and then like this team tournament, like fishing tournament guy level, and then the level underneath that, like the guys that just fish, that don't care about tournaments and stuff like that. And I know guys like see, like a lot of these comments, they're not wrong, but I think there's a giant deeper level than all this stuff. What I would say is this: is there anything in your life as you've gotten older that you would want to take away that's made your life easier?
Right.
Like, do you like your phone more now?
Oh yeah.
Do you like your truck more now? You like your
Yep,
boat?
all that.
You like your house? You like being warm? Like clothes have gotten better? Like everything that you have in has made whatever it is easier, right? Whether it's everything. That's like they're always advancing stuff, and most of that stuff, there's almost nothing that we don't like that has made life easier on us, right? And like, no, I want that to be harder on me again, right? Like, all right, like that. Yeah, I don't like that they've made better clothing now. I want to feel miserable when I'm out there in the weather, right? Like, none of us are like that. We all want it to be easier. You can't blame, and listen, me and you are fine with still going back with or without it. I'm just telling you that these people, if the more people that go use it and go, man, it's, what is it, 33 degrees outside today, and if I went out fishing without it on some lakes, I might get 3 bites. And then that same lake, if you had it, you might go get 30.
Yeah.
And you're going to tell that guy, hey, right? And maybe that guy's 1 year into fishing or 30 years into fishing, and be like, hey, by the way, we're going to take that away to where you have to go get 3 bites again. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm not even going to read the comments, because if not, I'll get mad at them. I'm just saying, because like, just sometimes people just need to take a step back and just listen. Just listen. It's going to be hard for that guy to be like, yeah, I don't want to go back to the day of catching 3 fish a day. Now, me and you look at it, and I think a lot of the outside guys, the older guys, that I think our problem with it, and not our problem with it, but we all have that respect factor with each other, that like, you spent thousands of those 3 bite days out there. And like, there's something to that. Like the days, a lot of times people quit, right? At 3 o'clock, you see those guys that practicing for an event. I'm like, yeah, he's tired of not getting bit. I'm going to beat that dude in a tournament, right? There's a respect to that. Like, we can handle those rough days, and we've done it forever. And now we look at, and it's the younger generation, is like, they don't really have those rough days, because you don't really have them. Even if you're not catching fish, you're kind of always still like finding them, right? Like you're visibly looking at them to a degree. Yeah. And someone's like, oh, they're putting in a lot of work. And I was like, it ain't that hard. Like, it, not in the fish catching part of it. It's just, even on a day like today, I would have fun if I never even made a cast. I would learn a lot by looking at LiveScope and looking at where fish are and stuff like that. And it's not that depressing, because some of those days you come off the water and you're like, God, that was a waste of 10 hours. Dude, I've never been on the water with LiveScope and thought I wasted any time ever. And so I just think that's part of it. They're like, oh, those young guys are spending more time than the old guys. I'm like, yeah, well, there's a couple of reasons for that. They're not, I promise you, none of those guys are worried about freaking $17 a day like I was, and like you were, they ain't worried about that part of it, the money part. But it's also not that hard to just go spend that many days on the water with live. It makes it easier. Don't you agree? And I don't think I don't think it's going away, because anyone that gets into fishing now and gets that thing, And they don't have to be great with it. Just the fact that if they're like, hey man, I put this thing on and I catch twice as many fish, they're not going to want it to go away.
Yeah, I mean, I got varied opinions on that. You know that we've talked about that before. So I don't think it's good for the professional sport. You know, and I don't even want to get in that freaking rat race. You know what I mean? And ask and say whatever. We're taking away co-anglers because of COVID. It wasn't because of COVID. It's because of live scope. You know.
Well, that's why you're gonna have a hard time getting in the Toyotas.
Yeah.
The Toyotas. I was shocked when they sent that email out that they didn't ban it in the Toyotas and the BFL, because I don't know. They might have one more year, and I think they're going to have to do something or get rid of co-anglers, because I think after, I don't know about everyone else's event, but I can tell you what events are going to be bad. And I'm telling you right now, Rayburn in January, 0 grass, dude, it's going to be 90% of the guys out there live scoping.
If not more.
Yeah, if not more. So get ready.
If not more. But, you know, I mean.
Not Chris McCall. Not Chris McCall. He already wrote a post.
Hey, I'll be up there looking in the dirt too, and you know, old school stuff. But I definitely plan on looking out there plenty. So I don't know. It bugs me. Just like I'm gonna go film with Ben next week, and I know that's all we're gonna do. So it's like it. Yeah, I mean, just stuff we're filming with Six and stuff. But I'm like, when I go film with them, or like today, I'm by myself. Yeah, and live scoping is fun. Like you said, you catch fish. Like I blasted them this morning. I've got one in my live well. It's almost 10 pounds right now. Takes pictures.
Oh, really?
But
on what lake?
If you're out there with somebody that's live scoping, man, it's not that fun to me because you're just sitting there watching. I mean, you can both throw in there. Don't get me wrong, but that usually just messes it up. So I think it takes away some of that camaraderie when you're just fun fishing with your buddy, because it's not the same. You know what I mean? Let alone on the elites when you got 95 guys staring at the screen all day, whether they're in 5 foot of water now or 50, it doesn't matter. The technology is so good and the guys are so good that it's just, God, what's it going to be one day? You know, whether we're throwing a worm at them or a jig or a minnow, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. So it's fun. Don't get me wrong. I have a blast with it. You go up north with it, it's even more fun. So I don't know, you know.
I had so I take my son all the time. I don't take him that much, but I take my son and my daughter, and my son's 10 now. I mean, he might get to go like once every couple months. You know, he don't really care. Like I don't really push it or whatever. I only go with him if it's like really good. And but he plays so many sports, he could care, you know, he don't care. So, but I got him out there the other day because I was like, hey man, this is gonna be a fun day. Like we're gonna go crush on him. And he likes cleaning crappie. So it's great. So I got a guy who will help me clean fish. So like, you know, like that's awesome. So I was like, hey, we'll go catch some crappie and stuff like that. Well, we get out there and we're catching them. And a lot of times he can't throw, like certain times, whatever we're doing, he can't throw that far to like get a good cast. So like I'll be doing stuff like that, help him out. And then, but this way I knew we could catch a whole bunch of fish doing other stuff. I said, we're going to go crappie fish too, though. We're going to catch everything. So, I mean, we caught like 40 black bass. We caught like 80 white bass. I mean, we only kept like 15 of them, just the real big ones. Caught a bunch of blacks and then caught a bunch of crappie. So I think we kept like 25 crappie. And we're sitting there and I was like, all right, look. And I got him out there with a spinning rod and I was like, this is where we're at. And he was looking at it and he's looked at it, but he doesn't really care about it, right? He's whatever. And he's never caught a fish while looking at it, right? And I'm like, all right, do this. And within about 10 minutes, he was kind of like focused on it. And I was going, and I kind of wanted to do it just to see like what a 10-year-old and how he looks at it. And we try to keep him off games and stuff. I try to make him listen. I'm probably that dad yelling at him like we're going outside and playing sports all the time, right? So he likes to do that other stuff. I just try to limit it as much as possible. Dude, he was
Right.
like watching it and like he got it down within 10 minutes, and I was going, that's why. There it is. Like that age group, and like it was instantaneous. And he was like, figured out what he needed to do with it and got it at 10. And I was like, oh, there you go. No, he didn't care about going back out there. He hadn't asked. I'm just saying, like he kind of was like, you know, he caught him the other way too. It didn't matter, but it was just interesting to see. I wanted to see how he responded to it, and I was like, "Yep, there it is."
Yeah, I mean it's not easy finding the winning fish with it, but it's easy once you learn how to catch fish on it. But I could take my mom down this bank right here with a spinnerbait. If they were biting it, she could throw out there and catch one. Yeah, she might lose one every now and then compared to me, but fishing's not that hard once you know how to do it. But I'm not taking anything away from the guys that are winning with live scope. I mean, it's not like they're putting the trolling motor in, they're jumping in. They're still breaking down lakes, just like today out here. I've covered miles out here, and I found 2 or 3 little zones where there's giants and they're out in the middle of nowhere. You couldn't catch them without forward-facing sonar. I'm using Mega Live 2, learning it. So it's I don't know, interesting time in our sport. But I mean, honestly, like last year, if I wouldn't have live scoped the 2 tournaments that I've used live scope, I would have been in the top 10 AOI instead of in 20th, and probably more towards 5th. The 2 that I used it the whole time, I didn't make the cut. And if I'd have just went to the bank and done what I do, I'd have freaking done good.
Well, the Toledo Bend one this past year, I think I win that one. I think I win that one pretty easy. Because I never used it once, and I think everyone above me was doing it. So like that's what I've always said is that, man, I think my pocketbook would be a lot better without it, even though I'm using it more and more. But I can't. It was hard at Toledo. I mean, I'm over there catching them on a freaking hybrid hunter, and then I went sight fishing, not just half the day, the final day, but I mean, I caught all those. I'll tell you what bothered me. There's a good fisherman that was younger guy that was up there with me, and for like half the day, and he didn't catch him. He ended up doing good in the event, but he was like, dude, I don't know how you caught any fish up there. I couldn't get bit up there. And I was like, I don't know, man. But I mean, he live scopes. And I was going, and it just, those are the times when it kind of frustrates me, because I'm like, well, what would you be doing if, like, I don't care what anyone says. There's a lot of guys that try to argue that. No one will ever convince me otherwise. And I don't care if I make everyone mad. I could care less. I don't care if the whole world comes down on me. But dude, it would look so much different. And it's going to look different. And it's going to look different for so many, like 99% of most guys. It would change the outcomes of events and their careers.
Yeah.
Now, everyone's going to go throw in like a guy like Jacob Wheeler. And I'm like, no, I'm never thinking about guys. I'm never thinking about the guy that's won 20 events before forward face and he's good with it. I'm talking about the guys that have never won an event, or you've never even heard, and then all of a sudden that came out and you're like, that, and I don't care if people get mad, but if you took it away, and it's foolish for everyone to sit there and think otherwise. Because it's like, it'd be like me never fishing a smallmouth lake, and I win every tournament down here fishing for largemouth, and I go up there and go, well, Todd can really catch largemouth. He's going to catch some smallmouth. And I'm like, well, maybe, but I've never done it before, right? I mean, when none of those guys have ever really done it at a high level, not catching a fish, like you just said, you could put your mom with you on the boat, and she can catch a fish going down the bank on a spinnerbait. Like, that's way different than winning an Elite Series event. You know what I'm saying? On a spinnerbait. There's a big difference, and I don't know why people like try to say that that's just as easy with or without it, because it's not. It's nowhere even close.
Yeah,
you know that.
Yeah. Look, it's definitely changed again.
When you see Lee get real quiet and think about what he's about to say, that's him going, "How bad do I want to get involved in this?"
Yeah.
And I'm telling you right now, because you see, what's funny is the people that roll in your head when you think about that stuff are not the same people that roll in my head. Because you fish against different people, and then I fish against different people. So like a lot of people always think I'm thinking about other people, and I'm not. I'm thinking about like a local stuff. Like rarely am I thinking about some elite guy. I could care less.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not in the Rayburn crowd, but
It's not even Rayburn. I just know, but it's
but I
just
could
I
say
think about my
I
crowd.
could say 3 or 4 names, and you'd be like, oh yeah, that's one of them I was thinking about in that zone. You know what I mean?
I could name off probably 14 to 20 in y'all's.
Yeah.
And I'd be dead on.
Oh yeah.
It'd be dead on. It was just like the Alabama. We always get into the whole Alabama rig too. Like when the Alabama rig, they let them use it for a while, and I was like, I mean, they were quick to freaking cut that thing out.
Yeah, I know. I actually threw it some today. It's the first time I've thrown it in years.
Well, I had to. So I bet you I didn't throw one for the first 7 years it came out. So I was at the event where it made its first presence in the non-professional world. So it was at when did at Gunnersville that Paul Elias did it, right?
Right.
Well, the next event that was a somewhat of a big event was the Toyota Championship at Kentucky Lake. And so me and Russell were down there, and I'll never forget. So like the day before, so like all that buzz had come around, and I don't know who it was, but they were a guy. I didn't go to it, but a guy like went somewhere like the night of the meeting, and they were selling them, and it was like 2 per person, and they were selling them like on the side of the road. And I was and everyone went. And I'm like, I ain't doing that. I'm already catching fish. I don't need that stupid thing. And I think I'm like, man, we could probably make this out of coat hangers. So me and Russell kind of made one, and I was like, and I think he might have thrown it. I think we might have had 1 or day of practice with it, and I was catching them pretty dang good without it. I don't even think I ever put one on. And then I made the cut. I made the top 10, and then I would look back at the footage, and everyone in the top 10 except me is like throwing it, and I was going.
It was that powerful then. Yeah.
Huh?
It was that powerful then.
Yeah, and I didn't and I remember like I was catching them in this one area, and I think it was Kobe Krieger was in there, and he was like came in that area throwing it, and I'm like, what's he even throwing around? Because like I couldn't catch fish where he was at because it was too deep, and he was catching them. And I'm like, it started getting to me. I'm like, oh. I wonder if this is what's going on with everyone. And then sure enough, I look at the replay and the footage, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. But I was like, I was pissed off from that event every day because of that.
I think the one at Gunnersville that Paul won, Kobe fished it too, I think. Because either Kobe or Porosnik, one of the two have told me a story about that. They literally sat there and watched whoever you catch giant after giant after giant after giant, you know, the second day or whatever it was, third day, like the cut day. And were catching them on a trap or something. And it was either Kobe or Jacob. And they said, they were just like, hey man, Todd, will you just like, are you good? Have you made the cut? You got like 30, whatever, you had 25 pounds, and whoever it was cut their A-rig off, gave it to Kobe or Porosnik, whichever one it was, and they made like 5 casts and caught like 23 pounds
Where
to
at?
make sure. I want to say it was the one at Gunnersville that Paul won. And it might have been the one you're talking about. One of those two guys have told me that story. They sit there and watch somebody kill him on an A-rig, and that guy cut the bait off for him, gave it to him. They made like 5 casts, caught cut weight, and gave it back to him.
Well, I know, like I said, it made me mad from there. And then I saw once again, even on Ray, like a guy won a tournament that should never have won a tournament ever, right on Rayburn, or maybe Toledo or whatever. And I was going, oh no. And then I started seeing random people. And then like when you went up, remember when you used to go out to the lake? And in like Toledo was bad. It was just like Alabama rigs. And like you see them everywhere. Like, and you're not casting them like, everyone else is like casting down the bank specific. And you see these guys just bombing, because he's throwing them way up in the air. And you just see them everywhere. And guys aren't even fishing anything. And I was going, this is should not be what fishing really is, And
I was making them out of flagging wire, like the little flags you have in your yard that mark your sewer lines and stuff. Like I was taking those, bending them with a crimping tool and putting like a bullet weight on the front and just putting swivels on the back. And I remember the first one I ever made, I was at Fork right after Paul's tournament. I made one, and the first cast, I caught 4 bass in one cast. And I was just like, oh my God, like on a deep school format one time. And like then you could literally just go down the bank like a spinner bait and you'd just kill them everywhere. The fish had never seen it. That was the biggest draw power ever that we've seen in our life until live scope.
It pissed me off so bad when I would see a guy, like he was a tour guy and we were fishing the Toyota and and we meet going down the bank and he's going down the bank and he's like, one cast here, one cast out in the open. And I was going, he doesn't even care. And I'm like, he's not deciding on he doesn't care what bait he didn't throw another bait like all year long. He threw it everywhere he went. Didn't matter where he cast it. And I was like, this is pissing me off. And like I said, I remember that event too. I remember a guy who like almost won it. And I was like, if they ever ban that thing, you'll never hear of that guy again. Never heard of him again. Once they got rid of it, like never heard of him again. And I was going, this is what I got to deal with. And I had to deal with it for a while. And it was it was almost kind of a little bit like live scope when you're like, is this going to be an Alabama rig thing? Right? Because now I don't even think it's going to be a live scope thing. It's going to be one. But back then it was like, oh, the water's not cold enough. Okay, good. Or hey, because I always like there were certain lakes that guys weren't winning on. And for a while, Rayburn was one of those that like you go out there and catch 50 or 100 of them on it and not catch one over 2 pounds.
Yeah.
It's not like that now, but I'm just saying it was certain lakes. Well, we had grass. So we're like, oh, it doesn't work good in the grass. and we have grass, so it's not going to dominate, but you get on places like Grand or any place else, like that's, you heard about certain lakes with that it was an Alabama rig lake. And if you weren't throwing one certain times of the year, you just weren't even going to have a chance.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go to those lakes.
No, it was just like scope. You had to throw it all day. You got to scope all day now. Certain tournaments. Yeah. See, like, do you believe that? No, I don't. Not even close. Is he talking about the Fork event last year?
I don't know what he's talking about. I thought it just in general.
I think he's talking about the 100-pound club, like the 100 century belt at Fork.
Well, no way.
Every one of them was using it. I think Stetson got one last year, and he caught that big bag the first day bed fishing. Stetson did do that. But everybody else was scoping, yes, 100%.
Half the guys, maybe one guy. Like, people don't understand that, like, those fish you're not catching those.
No.
It's why in 50 years no one's figured out how to catch half those fish because they're swimming out, because you're not going to randomly throw out there in the middle of nothing. And when I say in the middle of nothing, it's not like it's the middle of nothing. It's just there's nothing to throw out in 14 foot of water, 6 foot down, and go, oh, I need to stop my bait 6 foot down in 14 foot of water right there on that exact cast.
Well, I caught him guiding, but before the Alabama rig, I just knew where there were certain bigger trees underwater, and I was throwing jerk baits over the top of them, and you'd hit 10 of those big cedar trees a day and catch 4 or 5, and they'd all be 9 to 11 pounds, and that's how we caught them, and that's run now because of it. And then after that, when the Alabama rig came out, hell yeah, we were just like you were saying, we knew there was trees everywhere out there in the open. We couldn't see how deep they were, but we were just taking, putting like, screw lock weedless Context style baits on there and throwing them out there in the trees and counting it down to whatever we wanted to, 8 to 12 foot, and reeling them through. And yeah, we'd catch a few, but we didn't know there was thousands of them out there.
Well, so when no one was doing it and they had never seen baits and you could only catch a few out of 1,000, now you look out there and there's like a dozen of them and you have to be so perfect with them to catch one. And you can maybe you catch all 12 of them. Like sometimes they're not that hard, but it is definitely, and this is a no-brainer, it has definitely made everything so much harder to catch. Like you just can't go out there and throw out there with a jerkbait anymore. Like, yeah, you'll still catch them on a jerkbait, but I just don't think people realize that you were throwing over hundreds of fish to catch 12 on a jerkbait, and now you're throwing it 20 of them and you might catch one or two if you had to do it blind. Because I've tried that. I've tried a lot of times when it's really good to just go, I'm just going to throw out there without knowing. And dude, it's freaking hard. Like I can do like 5 or 6 casts and I'm like, and if you don't think it's hard, ask every coiner that's been in the back of the boat going, I can't catch anything. Like there's a reason those guys don't want to fish because they're like, they don't catch anything. It's hard.
Yeah.
They might catch some fish, but it's not like winning,
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of little deals like that. We were catching the same fish before.
He said
it's different.
Would not have broke the 100. I apologize. He said not have broke the 100. I agree with him. I apologize. I apologize.
I understood the question.
Well, not me. I'm an idiot, apparently. I didn't see have not.
No, I mean, none
He's right. I apologize, CRB. Sorry.
None of them would have except Stetson last year, I think. I can't remember who all got one, but, a lot of that's, like I just said, we were catching the same fish certain ways that we are last year. We just didn't understand what little bit of the iceberg we were touching. Even like the Sakamata shad, the big ones, I wouldn't. Mark Pack was the first one I heard about it. Like at Fork, he was throwing big whatever. The big flukes, the big Magnum flukes, and counting them down in the trees out offshore. Like our fish on Fork will leave those deep spots usually mid-July, and they just disappear. Off the hard spots, the road beds, besides a couple of dills, and Mark was one of the first ones that figured out, they're going over there in those 40-foot trees and suspending 15 foot down, and Mark was throwing weightless impact shad was what his was called from LST, and he was counting them down in those trees and catching them. And, obviously we started being able to graph them over nothing too. We'd graph 2D fish over 40, 50 foot in these trees at Fork, and you just see 2 or 3 of them down there, 15 to 20 foot down. And we'd sit back, and that's what we did for years. Like in July and August, I was throwing just a big Magnum Zoom fluke, put a little bit of lead wire on it. We'd count it down to 15 seconds. He'd pop it a couple of times and let it sit there. And when you'd see your line tighten up, and dude, when you got on a bite like that, it was insane. I know there's people listening to this probably did it with Mark or myself, and we'd catch the biggest fish in the lake. And it was something I was throwing on the actual hard spots too, and literally letting a weightless Magnum fluke go all the way to the bottom and just popping. It was something they never seen before, and it was shaking a freaking 7-inch Sakamata shad down there on the bottom with live scope or over I remember going to Casey at 6 cents and be like, hey man, here's what I'm doing. I don't understand the real details of it yet, but it's like the first sponsor I ever got that paid for the opens for me to fish the first year I ever fished was a guy named Mac McMillan. He had a trucking company then, but I had a school of fish where I did that. I sank, and he fishes with Trevor Romans. You probably know, Trevor, he used to fish the Elites from Texas, and he saw what I was doing with that thing, and he was like, oh my God, like light bulb moment. And that's why we made the big 6 cent 7.2 flush weighted, was because of that. But I didn't understand the live scope, small jig head Sakamata shad shaking it. It was the same thing. I just didn't have it figured out because of we didn't have live scope obviously then, but it's just weird that all these little details go back to each other eventually, and now we've just exposed it all with forward facing sonar.
Yeah, and every once in a while, like this one right here. So the only thing I'll say is this: like coiners complain about, and I've made tons of videos about it both ways. Right? There are absolutely horrible boaters out there that you wouldn't ever. I would go to bat for every coiner in the world out there. That some of these boaters are horrible. Some of them. And some coiners are horrible, right? Whatever. Like that is what it is. I can tell you if a lot of the coiners that don't like me and they've said it, they're like, well, he never slowed down. And I'm like, well, yeah, I fish fast. Sorry. Like that's how I catch them sometimes. So like a lot of times that's the pattern is going super fast. Right. And then some guy's mad about that. And then I've had some of my fishing partners that I actually like my buddy Brent. I'm like, what'd you do? He's like, we set out in the middle of the lake all day long and set and threw on one spot. I'm like, how'd you do? He's like, well, he zeroed. I caught 3 fish for 6 pounds. Right. And so it's like, yeah, you got to fish the way you wanted to, maybe. Like some of those guys just want to sit down in their seat and like slow work a worm. Right. I'm like, hey, I also fished a certain way and had 20 pounds and I'm in the cut. So it's like I did what I needed to do to catch a fish. You just didn't like the style I was doing it, right? So it was always a flawed system in having two guys that don't know each other. Like the coiner's always in the raw end of the deal, right? So you're always going to get guys complain. The only difference is like even this. If I'm pulled down on laydowns with them stuck over deep water, rarely are you pulled down and you're having to throw it like 60. I mean, chances are you can throw around. And then I've even had guys get mad because of sight fishing, which I will argue sight fishing all day long because I don't know how many guys, well, I wouldn't say a lot, but I've had guys win tournaments while I sight fished.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times, like when me and Russell sight fish, dude, we catch a lot of fish while the other guy's sight fishing. And I've always tried to explain this. Wherever you're sight fishing at, all the fish want to come to you.
Yeah, there's more within eyesight.
There's more of them, and there's way more of them out there trying to get to where you're at because you're in the right spot. So, like, I promise you, most of the fish are coming shallow or have been shallow or whatever. And most of the guys if what sucks is some of those coiners never get to see other coiners fish, and so I have a different view on it. When I see a coiner complaining. And I'm like, well, then why did my guy – I did the same thing today, and my guy yesterday is in the top 10. He caught a limit easy. He caught like 14 fish, and you've had 0 today. And they're like – and now I'm never going to tell that coiner what my other coiner did because it's not right. So I'm sitting here going, but I don't feel sorry for you because that guy – and as soon as that guy, whoever it is, and I can think about him and I can see him, so many of those guys, as soon as I make my first cast and I look back there and I'm like, oh, he's going to catch him. Like, I already know because I'm like, yeah, he's doing the right thing. He gets it. And other guys don't get it. Yeah. And so whatever. But I'm telling you right now, and there's some times when I'm out there and I try to put myself in a coach position because I've always said I would be a horrible coach. I think I would be like bottom quarter of the field. Like, I don't even know how I'd catch them. Like, I really don't. So some of those guys amaze me, right? But I'm telling you right now, if the way scoping is at times and you're a coach, I would say, man, I'll give you $1,000 if you can catch 2 all day.
Right.
2. I'm just telling you, when you see it, there's like they have 0 chance. 0. And I think it's going to be a problem heading forward.
It is. I mean, and there's stuff like that we like. If you're paralleling a bluff wall, he's screwed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're fishing it right, you know what I mean? Right up on it. And there's always been little deals like that. But if you got a guy that's out there scoping deep drains out in the middle.
Especially if it's singles.
Yeah.
Like right now I can go in certain places, and right now it's different. But right now you can there's hundreds of them schooled up, right? But that's probably not the way to win. in the way to win, I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of times where, yeah, they just don't have a chance. They really don't.
Yeah.
I remember when they were on Hartwell. I don't know if it was Scott or Andrew. I think one of the coiners said, he's like, it didn't matter if there was a fish within 100 feet. Scott knew where it was, because I mean, this was kind of this was like early on, but basically it was like you can scan around so quick that it's like you're out there in like 40, 50 foot of water fishing those cane piles or whatever, and they're all suspended. And so, and there were schools of them, right? He's like, if a school got within 100 feet, right, in a big circle, so like it would take you, if you sat down and you thought about it, to throw in 100 feet, it'd probably take you 30 casts to make all that perfect cast. He said, shoot, it'd get within 100 feet, he'd see it, and then he'd throw over there on him. And he was like, so a fish never got within 100 feet where I actually got a chance to throw at it. Like, he's like, yeah, they had zero chance all day long. And they're right. Like, if you think about it that way, they're right.
Yep.
That's why I think they got rid of them in the opens. And I think the Toyota, like, I'm wondering what's going to happen if the Toyotas are next. But I always said it was a flaw. I thought it was always kind of a flawed system anyways.
Right.
There's a video of this girl. This is a pretty funny video. She makes this video. She's like, do you know that guys, I don't want to do it injustice, but she's like, do you know guys, like, on Saturdays go to the gym and they don't know anyone and they just show up at the gym and they go in there to play basketball, and that, like, they meet strangers and they form teams, and like each team knows that if you lose, that team gets to go on the court next. And like people are, and it was a girl saying this, like, because like this would never happen with women, right? Like nowhere would like a random stranger women would get together to like, and she was just making a point, like it was a satire, right? She was like, these guys, they don't know each other and they just know that people are going to show up at the gym to play ball. And it was a really good skit, right? Well, if I've told that sometimes, like people that don't know fishing, they're like, you mean some just random guy you don't know gets in your boat? I'm like, yeah. They're like, huh? And like, if you say that to people that don't know, they're like, well, why? Well, so you're just okay with some random guy getting in your boat and you just got to fish with them all day? Like if you say it, it kind of sounds a little like strange. Like most people are like, well, that's really weird. Like, so you don't know this guy? Like, what happens if this guy? And I'm like, yeah, it's just part of it. It's not that big of a deal. But to a lot of people, they're like, that's really strange.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never had a bad co-angler ever.
What? You
I've
got
had
a couple enough of them.
I've had a couple where I've been like, and one of them I'm still pretty good friends with. The only one that I was making a really long run on this one river system, and the water was coming down and it was draining out of this swamp, and it was like clean, clear, black swamp water coming into a muddy river. And they were right there, like a 3 foot wide cast kind of deal, you know? And I told him, I said, hey man, and it was like, you're going to pull up there and you get bit every cast. And then I had some other stuff up that river where I was going to go catch some bigger ones, you know? But I was driving so far, it was like hour and a half run and getting gas both ways that, you know, you had to catch them pretty quick. So you wanted a limit, you know? I told him, I was like, hey man, I'm going to pull up to this cut. I had 2 or 3 of them, but like, I'm going to pull up to this cut and, you know, I'm going to catch them, you know, pretty quick. Like if you'll just leave me alone and let me catch my limit, you know, it's like a one cast deal. Just let me catch my limit. And, you know, I might catch 1 or 2 more, you know, and then I'm going to get comfortable and I'm going to let you throw in there, you know, and you're going to get your 3 or 5, whatever the limit was for a co. And he's like, hell yeah, you know. So I pull up to the first one, and he's like my age guy. I throw in there first cast, you know, catch one. Second cast, catch one. Third time I threw in there, and I was just throwing like a little crawl, you know, and I threw in there and missed one, pulled my crawl off, you know, and I spot locked right there, and I got down the boat, you know, grabbed the crawl out, and I stood up, and his line was in that cut, you know. And I said, dude, you know, I'm telling you, I'm like the coolest boater in the world. Like, I'm going to get you your fish, but just I asked you not to throw in there like, I'll put you on the bank, because I could put him on the bank and I could throw up there if I wanted
Right.
to. You know what I mean? And he'd have been straight bass. And I'm not going to do that to you. Like, you can still fish this 30-yard stretch of bank, and you'll probably catch one up there. You know, like every fish in the river wants to be right here. And sure enough, I catch another one. He threw right back up in there. I didn't even say a word. I took my boat and I put it literally on the bank of the river. And he literally just looked at me and said, "Dude, I'm so sorry. I couldn't help myself." And I was like, "Cool, man. Like, I'm not mad at you, but I'm about to get and I caught my 5 and I went to a couple and I said, now here's what I was going to let you do." And I pulled back out there and I let him get his whatever the limit was and went on. But like, that's the only time I've ever been like, dude, like, I'm telling you, if you trust me, you're gonna be just fine. But just let me get mine first. But I've never had anybody that was just bad. Besides, like, people, I've had some guys like throwing way over you and stuff where you had to tell them to, hey man, you're gonna screw both of us up more than do good for yourself, kind of deal.
I've had mostly, mostly are just normal. Like I wanted to calculate it up. I mean, I probably had over 300. I've had well over 300 coiners. So I mean, I've had to deal with a lot. The older I get, it sucked when you were young, because I didn't step up and be vocal enough sometimes to them when I thought some of them would try to push the limits. I have very few of them try to ever push the limits now. And like I said, I'm not ever trying to, like, I just go fishing like I normally would anyways, right? The sight fishing one, the first tournament I ever won in Toledo, besides all that happened that morning, because I broke down without 5 minutes after takeoff. And so Russell was in the top 10. I've got like a 7-pound lead going into the day, and my boat breaks down. He had to tow me back in. And then I just like scrounge around. I found Andy Gaia, who was still like sleeping. I woke him up. I'm like, "Can I use your boat?" He's like, "What are you doing?" Like he looked at me like I knocked on his door at the campground. He's like, what are you doing? Why aren't you fishing? I'm like, "Dude, I broke down. I'm trying to find a boat just so I can get out there and go." And he was like, "Yeah." He's like, "But I didn't charge it and I didn't put any gas in it." So long story short, like, and then I had like all these waypoints of fish. And I got in his boat and he's like, "Dude, Todd, I don't really know." I was like, "I don't need a trolling motor that much because I already know where most of them are." Like, because I saved them. And I was like, "I don't know about the gas." Long story. Dude, it's such a long story. Like, I didn't start fishing until 10:30. I had to find gas because when I started, he had a Ranger. And I was driving down and I was like, "Dude, we're not gonna make it back." So I got into Alpine. It was closed. But I got the guy out there. He's like, "Dude, I have a reserve tank, but man, I can only give you like 8 gallons or something." And I'm like, "I'll take it." So, I mean, all this happened before I ever made a cast. And I'm like leading my biggest event I've ever been in. And we go start catching fish. And the guy I had with him, I know him still. And I'm like running to East Waypoint, catching 3-pounder, 4-pounder, doing whatever. And he hadn't caught anything. And I was like, "All right, now we got to just go find new ones." And I knew where to go where there was a bunch of them. And I was trying to like catch a giant. And I'm going and I'm like, "Hey, look, man, just stay with me. We're going to pass by a ton of fish." And I was like, "Just listen to me real close." And when I say a bunch, like 100. And I was like, "They're small. I'm not going to stop on any of them. And I'm going to tell you what to do." So I got it on high and I'm just flipping with my hook and everything. And I'd see fish, a 2-pounder, and I'd flip on it and it'd bite and I'd shake it off. I'm like, "Hey, flip right there." And I'm like, "You get one cast, dude, because we're going to be, And so he'd flip there and I was shaking off so many. I'm like, flip there. And within about an hour and a half, I'd flip there, shake it off. And he's like, I'm like, flip there. He flipped there, catch one. And he had like 11 pounds at the end of the day, won it easy. And I ended up catching like 19 or something and I won it, but it was sketchy. It was sketchy for a while. But yeah, like one of those deals where I'm like, he was cool. He's like, "Yeah, man, I'll listen." And I'm like, "Dude, I promise you'll catch him. Like, just trust me. We'll do it this way." And he would hold on. He would just wait. He'd get one flip. If you didn't catch on that flip, it was over. But I mean, there were so many of them at the time. I knew it wouldn't matter. I have crazy stories like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some embarrass me fishing behind me a couple times in some opens, and I've had some like that where I've had to. I had the first open I ever fished was on the Arkansas River, and I was third going. Well, the part of the story I'm going to tell was on the second day. I caught 22 pounds the second day on the Arkansas River in June, like a giant bag, and I caught it pretty early. I caught a 6 something, and other big ones obviously, but I had a co that was just destined for failure, like spinning rod with mono, like floating lizards, and just I didn't care until I got
Yeah.
right, and I had that bag and I locked back up to the takeoff pool, and I told him, like, I had a really good hole up there. I was like, man, just like, we're leaving so I can get back on the other side of the lock and breathe, you know what I mean? Because I left so early. He was like,
Right.
yeah, what? Well, did you let, I'm sure he wanted to go back down those stretches. And I was like, just trust me, I got a spot. Like, you're going to catch some your first cast. They're going to be big, which I shouldn't have done in the grand scheme of things, but I was very green and I'm a nice guy. But go up there, get in this little pond, and I'm like, you need a frog? Do you have a frog? And he's like, oh yeah, I got a frog, and he pulls a frog out with monofilament.
Mono. Yeah.
I was like, man, like, just, I had one. I was like, hey man, just throw this rod right here. It's got 65-pound braids, a big rod. Like, you're going to get a bite your very first cat. Like, it was a little drain deal. He's like, no, man, I'll be fine. I'm like, I was still young, like you said. I was like, okay, go ahead. There's some like gator grass in there. It's like guaranteed he's not going to get this fish in. Sure enough, he throws it out there and goose eats it, sets a hook. Yeah, I got him. I was like, I told you, he reels in a wad of gator grass. And I was like, I know I'm going to make the final day. I'm thinking, man, I could have probably used that. Looked like a good one. And I was like, dude, just throw my rod in there, please. I had the back end of the boat backed up. Same thing. Throws out there, gets blown up on, loses it. I said, all right, man, you cannot throw your rod and reel in there anymore, or I'm taking you out here. Like, you have to use my rod, my line, my bait, or I'm going to get out of here. You've just run 2 of them. Gave him my rod. He made 3 casts, caught his 3 keepers, and we got out of there. So there's always a good story with a co-angler.
They had that. There's been, like I said, some sight fishing events, and it's not really why I'm pulled down. It's where I'm like going down the bank, and I'll be going down the bank looking, especially on like flats. Like, so if you pick like Raven, not like a bank where it's like you only got that that much room to look. I'm talking about so like you can see like your entire cast, and I'll be going down a flat like say on Rayburn, and I'll be looking, and the guy will be like casting where I'm looking, not messing me up. I'm just like, hey man, and normally I just let it go, but every once in a while, like I'm just like, hey man, you're not going to catch anything right there. Like throw to the other side. And I think they think I'm like trying to tell them where to cast.
Yeah.
And they'll keep casting. I'm like, hey man, so here's the thing. I can see everything up there. There's no fish. Like we're going to come across a fish eventually. And it's going to be on a bed. It's going to be one. But all this other bank we're going down, there's no fish up there. Like I can see. So I'm seeing your cast land. It's 2 foot of water. There's no fish. You're wasting your cast. I don't know what's out there. And I cannot tell you how many guys, I would say 80% of them never make a cast out there. And so when I was a lot younger, and this time it had made me mad because I understand like half of them never seen these like sight fish. So they're like, they don't even realize sometimes when I pull up that I start flipping in the same spot. And they're like, God, I can't believe you flipped in that same spot and caught one. And I'm like, what's on the bed? Or maybe it's early in the morning or whatever. But so they see me catch a fish in that zone, like maybe 3 or 4 of them, and they think that's where you need to cast. And I'm like, and so I'll never forget. I'll tell you where it was. It was 147, and I'm going down there, and I'd said it, and he still kept on throwing up there. And I was like, and he was throwing like this pink methylate worm, which wasn't bad. I was just like, but dude, there's nothing up there. I can see everything. It's crystal clear. I can see everything. And I was like, finally, I was like, look, man, I don't know. And I don't know why it got me so mad, but it did. It was frustrating me. And I was like, look, and I reached down, I picked up, like back then I just threw a skinny dipper, like on a little lake, and I just throw it out there. And I'm like, look, man, just let it hit bottom. Just start reeling like this. And it's just, boom, I swear to you, within like 10 seconds, catch one about 2.5 pounds. Didn't help me. And I was like, look, man, you could have been doing this the whole time. And I threw it back, put the rod down, and kept going. He might have made 5 casts and then went to throw him back down the bank again. And like, I've had so many of those experiences where I'm like, because sometimes we'll get done after the day and they're like, man, did you ever tell them how to catch them? I'm like, nope, not anymore. I don't tell anyone anything hardly anymore because I'm like, you run into enough of that and it sucks, right? Because there's so many good co-anglers out there and he's not doing nothing wrong. But I'm like, man, it's a lot easier if I just don't even try because I'm like, it'll frustrate me. Because I'm like, man, here it is. And then the guy, I can hear him sometimes go, well, all you did was go down the bank so fast I couldn't. And I'm just sitting here going, well, no, you just didn't. Like just whatever.
Yeah.
They're not. I would say that was a lot worse back in the day. I'd say as I've gotten older, I run into less and less of that. I don't know why that is. Maybe better co-anglers or whatever, but I don't run into that as much anymore. But I ran into that a lot when I was younger or not younger, but like 10 years ago, stuff like that. I think I don't know what that is from.
Yeah, I've had some good ones, and I've had some embarrass me. Like I said, I had one guy. I was flipping like whatever, like a Zoom, whatever their little creature is. What's Zoom's little creature?
The
Z-Hog or something.
The brush hog?
No, it's like a
little. No, the speed crawl.
No, it's the little creature with just 2 little kickers.
The speed crawl.
No, it's got the ribs in it. The Z-Crawl. It's a Z-Crawl. That's it, right? The Zoom Z-Crawl.
I have no idea. I thought it was a speed.
No, it was, I think it's called a Z-Crawl. It's got little ribs and 2 little kickers. I remember exactly what bait I was flipping.
What? Well, yeah, they're saying Z-Crawl.
Yeah, that's what it is. Then
I don't know if I've ever heard of it.
Yeah, it looks like the Strike King. What y'all's not the Rodent, but the other one that's just got 2 little kickers out the back, kind of like beaver style body.
Dude, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah, you have. You're just acting like you have.
I'm looking at it.
Anyways, that's
we have a rage crawl, right? But like
rage bug. It's like y'all's rage bug.
Yeah, I mean a rage bug. I don't know if I've never even bought one of those or thrown that thing.
So it's real similar to y'all's rage bug.
Yeah, I see it. I'm looking at it right now.
It's just black and blue. I was in really dirty water flipping this grass. Not like, like not good grass, just flipping some grass. I was on the Arkansas River, and it's a totally different tournament. And that's what I've been catching them on, dude. And I had a co-angler, like I said, that was kind of just like, you see what he's bringing, you're like, oh man, a couple white spinning rods and just, I was like, super good guy, go to flipping. I hadn't caught much, and he hadn't caught much. 9, 10 o'clock, we're down there in that curve pool, and all of a sudden he catches like a good one out of the back of the boat, right where I just flipped, just little bitty grass, that whatever grass they have down there, grass line. I was like, damn, dude, like put my raptors down, I had talons, and put my talons down, and picked it apart. Nothing. He takes forever back there and puts his worm back on, and he's got like a brown paper bag, like you used to get your lunch from your mom in middle school in a sandwich bag. Brown paper bag he's getting these baits out of. He flips like 2 or 3 times and catches another. I was like, oh my gosh, dude. I just like picked that apart, and I was like, what did you catch that on? He was like, I don't know what it's called. My buddy that I'm staying with up here gave them to me last night and put them in this brown paper sack. And I was like, show me it. And it was an old school black with blue tip crawl, Jean LaRue salt crawl. Like the worst action in the world, just falls like that in the water. Like half Cinco, half crawl. You remember the old salt crawl. I was like, no shit, that's what you got those on? He's like, yeah, what about it? And I said, dude, that's like the oldest bait for this area ever. That's a salt crawl, black with the blue tip crawls too. And I was like, whatever. The dude just got lucky, Go to flipping, whatever. 15, 20 minutes later, he catches another good one. I'm like, oh my God, dude, like, how many did your buddy give you in that freaking sandwich bag? And he's like, oh, I got plenty, man. And he gave me one, and sure enough, I didn't flip 5 times, and I catch like a 4.5 pounder. I ended up catching 2 great big ones in my limit with it. It was just something about they wanted that stupid slow fall action in that dirty water, and it like blew my mind that stuff like that. Sometimes a co-angler can teach you a lot too that I would have never done, never would have thrown, never would have, and it was a deal. It wasn't like he was just getting lucky. That's what they wanted.
It's been a long time since a co-angler, like, I'm not saying they haven't taught me something. I will say this. There was one time on Toledo. I remember this. It was summertime, flipping grass. And the grass I was flipping, because it goes back to some guy was like, have you ever had someone, this one? It was the same tournament, but on day, I think those were 4-day events back then. So it was either on day, I can't remember what day it was. I think day 2. So day 2, I'm flipping grass, and this guy, like, it's like 12 o'clock, 1. We're not doing great. We've caught some, and all of a sudden he's like, has a spinning rod out where I'm flipping grass at. But we weren't flipping like matted out grass, not where I was catching them. I was catching them on the edge and stuff. And he's back there with a spinning rod, and he like catches a 3-pounder. And I'm going, all right. I'm like, no big deal. He's throwing on the edge of the grass, right? Yeah. Like 5 minutes later, he catches another 3-pounder. And I look back there, he's got what he should have on the spinning rod. Now, granted, he had like a purple worm, which is like Toledo Bend special, right? And I'm going, well, I wasn't on the edge then. I had like followed a drain up, and I'm like, he threw that in the grass. And I was thinking, like, I was trying to like figure out how, like, why he caught it and how he like, what's going on. And then he catches another one, another 3-pounder. And I'm going, hey man, like, how are you even landing those fish in this grass? He's like, that's not bad. I'm really not getting hung up. And I, like I said, I'm just, how if you're going flipping, like, I'm like this, right? And I just kind of look back there. I'm like, okay, he's got a drop shot on. Then I'm going and flipping. And by the 3rd time, I'm like, it doesn't bother me, but I'm like, I don't understand how he's catching it. Like, I don't even understand. And I look at it, and the weight he has on is about, I don't know, a 16th ounce, something so small. I'm like, hey, throw that out there. And it kind of gotten calm and clear, and he throws it out there, and it lands like, and I could barely see it. And of course, it doesn't fall through the grass. It just sat on top of the grass and like 14 foot. We were probably like 14 foot, and it was going down like 8 or 9 and sitting on top of the grass. He was never getting through the grass. And he was just kind of like flipping it out there. And I was going, well, I can't go do this. And I didn't even try to like rig one up. And I just shook my head. I'm like, just stay with what you're doing. You'll be fine. I will say I didn't really catch him any better. He might've caught like one. I mean, I caught some, but I was just going, that's insane to me. It wasn't that off looking back. I get it, but it was just crazy how he was just throwing out there on top of grass in the summertime, but on tall, like flipping grass and catching some on a drop shot and a purple worm. And he did good. I mean, shit, he had like 14, 15 pounds as a co-angler. Like, he did pretty good.
You never know, man. I've learned a long time ago from guiding to never tell anybody not to do something.
Well, that's
they're gonna prove you wrong really quick. I still remember the guy's name, and he's became a friend. I knew him from Oklahoma. His name was E.J. Buckalters. He was a lawyer or a DA, one of the two, and he looked like the coolest homeless dude you've ever met in your life. And he was a DA or a lawyer, I can't remember, but it was like Lake Fork, April 20th, glass calm, middle of the day, and you're like throwing little dippers around weightless and frogging and throwing a wacky worm, like could have been bed fishing, and you're not going to catch a bass any other way. You know what I mean? And he had been to like Minnesota or something, and had this gigantic musky spinnerbait. It was huge, like blades like that big, and it was like brown and orange and had a big eye on the blade. I remember it was gigantic, like had it been like a 1.5 ouncer.
I drew this guy.
We were all the way in the back of the creek that I lived in on Fort Searcy Creek, like all the way to the back where the gator grass is and stuff. And he's like, man, you think? And he's like the nicest guy in the world. Just sits in the back of the boat. You know, we're throwing like weightless flukes and wacky worms. And he's like, you think I ought to try this? You know, and I was like, no, man, that's like the last thing. I don't even know what that is. You know, I'm not going to tell you no, but like, you'll never catch a bass on that right now. You know, I don't know if you could in the prime time. And, you know, he does his deal. And like an hour later, he's like, man, I think I'm going to tie on that musky lure, that spinnerbait that I got from wherever. And I was like, okay, you know, whatever. And he throws it literally the first cast on the right side of the boat that he should have. He threw it out in the middle of the creek, and it's just like stumps and stuff out there shallow. And I'm like, I'm not saying anything, but I'm like laughing and kind of pissed off that he's doing what I told him not to do, you know. And all I hear is like a fish waller, and I look back and it's like a 9-pounder that he's got jumping all over the place, and it comes off, of course, you know, 2-ounce spinnerbait. And I'm like, oh my God, was that on that spinnerbait you just tied on? He's like, yeah, man, first cast. And I was thinking, oh my God, this guy's going to throw it the rest of the day, and he's never going to get a bite on that thing again. But that day forward, I'm like, I'll never tell anybody not to tie something on and throw it.
I swear I drew him. I know I didn't, but I drew a guy that picked up a spinnerbait one time, and I can't remember what lake it was, but it was like this orange, brown, monster trailer, everything. And he caught like 2 or 3 fish on it on a place that I was like, now it was like clear water. I don't know, but I was just going, the first one I was like, you know, I've seen a lot of random fish, right? But the fact that he might have caught 2 and lost 1. And I was going, I'm not even going to try to find one. Like, I'm not even going to do anything like that. I've never really changed. The question that Jamie asked was like, have you ever gotten I've gotten, every once in a while I'll have guys, never ever. This is like earlier on in my career, and that's why I choose not to do it ever again. But I would have a guy's like say where you're like, oh, you know, I'm from here, and usually I'm like, oh, okay, cool, and I just move on, right? Whatever. That third day of that Toledo Bend event, I drew Rusty Harvey, and I've known Rusty can like win every single team event. So like Rusty can absolutely fish. He's passed away since, and Rusty's awesome, like one of the best fishermen you'll ever meet. And we broke down that day, as usual. I broke down in every event when I was younger because of my boat. So we broke down, didn't have any trolling motor or nothing. And where we were, he was like, hey, I got a spot over here. And I'm like, yep, anything Rusty says, I'll go do. And we went over there and caught him, throwing a worm on the edge of the grass. Like, he would be the only guy, I swear, that I would be like, whatever he says, I'd probably drop what I'm doing and go do. But for the most part, I think the last time that it ever happened was Red River, and I caught him pretty good, but I was in pool 4. We were out of pool 3. And kind of like you, I had a decent bag, or I had enough, and the locks always scared me. And I'm like, man, he's like, I got a spot on the other side of the lock. And I'm kind of looking like, do I risk it for this lock or the next lock, right? Like, and I was going, I probably needed like one more. I think I had 4 at the time, but I had 4 decent ones. And I was like, he's like, man, we've been catching them down this bank. And I didn't ask much about it. And I'm like, well, if I get through the lock, I don't have really much in lock 3 in pool 3. And I was like, I'll just go now so I don't risk it. And we went down in there and we pulled up into this. It was right on the other side of the lock. I barely remember, but I remember looking down the bank, and it was nothing like banks I would ever fish. And I go, all right, because it was real steep. And I was like, well, what were you throwing? He was like, I was just throwing like a Bandit 200 down this bank. And I'm looking at him like, we're in 10. The Bandit's really not going to hit anything. And I'm like, so you're just – and I asked him like 100 questions. So I'm like, after like a couple minutes, I'm like, so are you catching them next to the bank or are you catching them away? Like, I don't understand what you're throwing on. And he was like, hey, you just kind of throw around here and get bit. And I'm going, and a lot more of the time, that's what happened. Like, Coingler's like didn't really have it dialed in as I wanted to. And I was like, oh, I should have stayed up there for another hour. Like, we're never going to catch a fish. And we didn't. I stuck with it for an hour because I had nowhere else to go. And I was going, yeah, like I said, I stopped. I'd rather zero. I don't really care anymore.
Yeah, I've never had anybody like help me. I was trying to read his question again, win or make a check or anything. But I'm sure there's definitely been a couple of times where I've had a local and he's been like, hey, the same thing's around the corner. You know what I mean? Something I didn't know and went over there and caught a fish or two. But
no, so
to answer his question, no, I've never had.
I get more of this. I get more of. It's when I stopped not taking it from, like, I would go someplace and someone's like, hey, I know a buddy over there, like he fishes there, he catches them there all the time. And I'm like, all right, like maybe I'll ask a phone call, or he'll call me up and he'll tell me some stuff. I remember being on Fort Gibson and the stuff they told me was good. Don't get me wrong. Right. But we were fishing an open or a Toyota there. And it was this point. And we went there and practiced, and like day one, and I had like 3 or 4 bites on it, like up shallow and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And then I found like this offshore, like he didn't even know about it, but it was like the shallower stuff that like some rock underneath the water that like was really, I still almost never seen one fish it. And we got bit there, and I'm like, this is good stuff. Well, over the next 3 days, every time I drove by that point I got bit on, like where he showed me, right, there's someone on it. So I was like, and so I started realizing that, man, I'd rather spend my time trying to find this off the wall stuff than the point that like obviously looks good. And yet it does have fish, but one, it gets beat up. 2, there's almost always someone on it. And so that's kind of one of those deals where it was a long time ago when I was younger, and I'm like, okay, information for me is not what it is, never going to work. And I'm not that good with it. Like, I suck at it. Like, some guys are good with information. I'll admit I'm horrible with it.
Yeah, the guys I know that get information in the opens and stuff usually are the worst finishers. Usually. I'm not saying there's not an odd egg in there every now and then, but.
You think?
Yeah, I mean, in the opens you can get information, or used to. I think they have information.
You're saying the opens or the elites?
The opens. We can't get information.
I thought, well, I guess you can't get information.
You cannot get information in the elite. I'm not saying there's a percentage out there that aren't been in
You can get information. You can get information for the elites.
No.
Well, I mean, do you really want me to say yes? You can.
Not legally.
Well, yeah, you could. Last year, if you're going to make the elites and you hadn't qualified yet, you could get all the information you wanted.
Correct.
Okay. Just
if you were a rookie for a couple weeks, you could.
There you go.
Yeah.
If you're a rookie, I mean, well, no, not for a couple weeks. You could get it the whole year. Oh, for a couple of weeks once the schedule came out? Yeah, you would know.
Yeah, once the schedule came out for them guys.
Yeah, 100%. Just throwing that out there. You don't have to. It's nothing like it's not like people don't know. Like they had to change the rule, thank goodness. Right? They changed that, right?
Yeah.
That now if you are what is the ruling on that like anyone in the top 20 that has a chance when the schedule comes out?
No, it's if you're fishing all of them, like the whole division to try to make it. Whatever the EQ qualifiers, is that what they're called?
Yeah, so once the schedule comes out, those guys are, regardless of where you're at, they don't have it either. They can't get it either. Okay.
Correct. If you're actually fishing all of them trying to make the elites. I think they're called EQ qualifiers, right?
Right.
So it was a rule that needed to be in place.
Yeah. It was because it applied to the Classic too. Mm-hmm. I mean, because I want to dive in. I'm not going to dive into it, but I just want to tell you how like guys think. So imagine this. Say you know the classic. I'm gonna put it on grand, and not just so we're not talking about Ray Roberts anymore. Say you put the classic on grand, and you're leading an event by like 8 pounds in an open, and you're like, if I just go handle business tomorrow, I'm going to make the classic. You literally could make 100 phone calls and get everything you need to know about Grand Lake, and then like go qualify for. Well, even back then, I take that back. You didn't even have to do that. I don't think people realize that you could win an event in January or February, and you're not technically qualified into the classic. You're not technically qualified in because you have to fish all 3 opens at the time. And so, and you couldn't just pay your money. You actually had to show up. So even though you were planning on going to the classic, you could get information because you technically weren't qualified for the classic until you
would have to fish your last. You'd have to fish your last one.
So I'm just saying, like, you want to know why loopholes and all these things get brought up? This is the way. I mean, this is just what happened. It's hard to, but it was. That's what happened.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's been like that forever,
But as long as they address it, though, Lee, and they've addressed it.
Yeah. No, I mean, what I'm getting at is, the rules have been the same forever. Like, even when I qualified, I could have went and done that, and I didn't. But we've had such an influx of young talent. When I say young. Trey McKinney's like 19 or 20, like I'll be at the damn campground drinking beer with Caleb, like, oh man, there's Tyler Williams. Let's go see if he wants a beer. And I'm like, hold on, I don't even know if he's 21. I don't even know if we can offer him a beer, like stuff like that. So we've had every year that goes into the elites is great every single year, whether it's Scott Martin and Christie and Hackney or Milliken and Trey and, every year is great. Brian New and every year you say, oh, it's just, and just like this year, we got Dakota and Cody Meyer and Easton, and, it just seems like it never ends, but we all got our butt hurt. When I say all of us, like the world, about these rules. And I agree with the rules. We needed it in place, but when Tyler, whoever, the whole rookie class last year, Kyle, everybody came and kicked ass last year, whether it's because of live scope, because of information that they could get legally, or just out working guys, or, a lot of the tournaments last year in the open schedule flopped back over to the elite. So, they had been there when some of our guys hadn't been in years. So I think we had some good rule changes this year.
And if y'all don't, I just want to let everyone know, if y'all don't like these rule changes or things pop up really stupid with Bass this year, just remember Lee's on the board, so it was probably his decision to do that. So just go to Lee, go to his Instagram page and go, hey, that was a stupid rule. I can't believe you agreed with that, Lee.
Yeah, now everything that we've changed is good for the better.
Come on, guys. Y'all,
we're still working on some stuff too.
Let them know that, like, that's a joke because, yes, you are on the board, but it doesn't, like, all he is more or less like they can still override Lee. So there might be a rule that pops up and be like, I can't believe Lee have agreed to it. Well, no, he might have disagreed, but so we won't know.
Yeah, I get my opinion. That's it. Bass made some good rule changes this year for sure.
They did.
And some stuff that hadn't even been brought up. Some more polygraphs, stricter fines if you are caught breaking a rule. That was, I'm not talking about, not wearing your kill switch or running no way. I'm talking about intentionally
gaining an advantage. That's all. That's all I've ever talked about is gaining an advantage. Like that's what it all comes down to.
We've changed some of that stuff that will, some of the guys that were, or whether it was true or not, were living in the gray last year. It's going to tighten things up. Like there ain't no $250 fines. We're talking $10,000 to $25,000 fines now. For stuff like that. So I think it's going to tighten the ship, and
that's good.
Bass made some bad decisions early this fall, with the no information that they switched back to. I personally didn't like the live scope ruling. And I didn't want to do away with it. I've never been a total. I wanted it to be 50-50. Half
That's
the
what
tournaments,
I
half
I
without it.
wanted it that way too.
Well, they say we just want to study it and see what the viewers like the best. And I go, well, how can you have any kind of survey when they have it the whole time? Putting one transducer on the front of Koyo's boat is not going to change how badass Koyo is with live scope. He's still going to whoop my ass if we're 1v1. So
It'll help a little bit about some of the places y'all go to and what time of the year. But that to me is still a mask. They just mask that, right?
well, yeah, but like I just said, if Ben Milliken, Koyo, Taku, Patrick Walters has one forward-facing sonar transducer on their boat, they're still going to outfish me on a live scoping tournament just because they're the best at it. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
like
that's
when
not changed anything.
When you go to the Sabine, right? I think this is pretty kind of public knowledge that no one's going to be out there in 30 foot of water live scoping. Maybe they are. I don't know. I've never been.
They'll still catch it with it though. Patrick caught multiple 3-pounders with it last time we were there.
Right. So, okay, but it's a little bit different, right? Yeah. What I wanted, and so even if you manipulate the schedule and the time of the year to offset it, right? That's not offsetting it to me. I want to be like, hey, I want to see those guys. I want to see those guys go to Fork. Fork's not even a really good example, but I mean, I want to see those guys go to some of these lakes and be like, okay, now you can't use it at all. And it's a normal lake. And what I mean by normal lake, it's not some random weird lake, or it's like 90% of the lakes we go to that are kind of like, how we used to fish, and just see I just want to see what they can do without it. Because to me, I still want to know if they can catch a fish. Like what? No, I know they can catch a fish. That's ridiculous. I want to see if they can somewhat even compete. And one tournament's not fair to them. That's my thing. So like me and you can have bad tournaments anytime. Like all of us can, right? So I don't want one event like that where some guy who's a really good live scoper goes there and has a bad event and everyone's like, oh, see? I'm like, no, dude, we have like everyone has bad events. But like if you split it up 4-4 and you got 4 top 20s and 4 70ths, and they all add up and be like, ooh, like there's a correlation there.
Yeah. No, I mean, here's what it is. I mean, Patrick Walters, with it or without it, he's still going to whoop your ass, just like the Jacob Wheeler deal. 80% of the time, he's still going to, Wheeler's been winning stuff since he was 18,
Yeah, those guys, I'm not thinking about those guys. Those guys won. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's a difference out there in a small percentage that rely on it solely.
That's all I want to do. And like I said, I've said this multiple times. When I talked to a guy from MLF about, I happened to call him up when that whole survey came along, and he gave the best answer ever. And it's an honest answer. Like, that's why I loved it. He was like, I said, man, I'm really interested in the BPT more than the other two on watching how, not saying I'll watch more of it, but I'm definitely going to watch and look at the results closely on what people did. And he said, man, yeah, like, let's not beat around the bush. If we're going to crown the best fisherman there is, he's like, then let's make it to where he can do it with or without forward-facing sonar. And I'm like, it's a simple answer. I agree with it. Like, how can anyone argue that? And I was like, yeah, let's see who the best one is with or without it. And what's wrong with that comment?
And I will watch it more. That's the first thing I saw. I was like, that was it. That was the. I'm not saying it's the final solution. But
I still don't even.
Right there.
It's still not. It's only it's only one period out of 3. It's still not as fair, in my opinion. The fairest way possible was the 4-4. And don't take it away at the Sabine, like, and be like, right. Oh, we really showed y'all something now. I'm like, okay, come on, like,
but do they could normal. They could have, and I'd have been like, all right, I'm cool. Like they had the perfect schedule this year to be like, there's half of them that are kind of, like the Chowan River and the Sabine.
No, I want to do it I want to see it on the live scope lakes.
I do too. I'm just saying,
That's,
I'm giving Bass like the easiest out is what I'm saying.
yeah.
They had it there and they didn't. And like what MLF did, I really like that. Even like, I don't care about how many screens you have. Like there was a height restriction, not a screen restriction. The only problem I had was, these guys are getting their stuff like 4 foot tall in the front. It's a driving hazard. So, like when I saw that, I was like, oh, it's not a screen.
No, the screen was irrelevant.
It's not a screen restriction. It should be a height. Like guys shouldn't have a graph up 4 foot high when they're driving. Now, if they want to raise it up to them or fishing, I don't care. But that's all.
Y'all got some elite guys that aren't very. They're not exactly tall.
No, I mean,
dude,
I'm 6'2", and in my Express with the trolling motor up there, I got a little blind spot right there on my front port side. Like I almost ran over Polnick last year just idling at the Harris chain. Like I was looking at a pontoon boat, and it was all of a sudden he was right there. I just killed. I was like, oh my God, dude, I'm so sorry. I've never done that to anybody before, but I got a little blind spot right there. And like you said, if Trey McKinney's there, and nothing against Trey, I'm using his name because I've already said it. Like he's not 6'2", he's young and short still, so there's got to be a blind spot for him.
I'm used to my camera, but like I'll put the camera on Russell's boat too. And I just stick it right there in front of the windshield. So it's just, I'm used to it after 4 years. He's never said a word, but I'm sure when you're driving, that thing's just bouncing all like, it's on that deal. He's never said a word, but I mean, you got screens, that GoPro doing this.
I talked to you. I was like, dude, because he has whatever he's got up there, and then he has the MBT, or last year, he had the MBT 22-inch battleship, but he had it above everything on like a mount where it was just like,
I got an MBT, but it's.
I asked him. I said,
lower.
How do you drive? And he said, oh, I look below my MBT and the other grass. There's like a little slot right there. That's how he drove. Was looking through that slot, and I was like, oh, that can't be safe.
Don't tell anybody that, right? You're like, don't tell nobody. That's great. You need to go back to fishing.
Two boats just got here. I'm pissed off. They're idling away.
Are you holler at me because me and you were supposed to go sometime.
I feel like we were supposed to talk about something today, and we didn't even get remotely close to it that we talked about yesterday.
Did we? I don't remember what we talked about.
I don't know. But yeah, I'm about to go back fishing.
I'm trying to think of I have no idea what we even talked about yesterday.
I don't remember either.
We just talked a lot about Kyle, about how Kyle's scatterbrained, and he, I don't know what he's doing calling me, and while I'm talking to you.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Why the hell is Kyle Patrick calling Todd Castle?
I talked to him later on, and it was like, it's pretty funny. All right, go do your thing.
All right, I'll give you a shot.
All right, do it.